We'll call the meeting to order. This is the August 14th regular meeting in the Building Commission at 1:02. Let me just get roll call taken here. Pete, I heard you. Lou, I saw you. John, I saw you. Joy, you're on. I'm here. First order of business would be the approval of the minutes from the July meeting. Any additions or corrections?
I move to approve, Joy.
Second, Pete.
Hey, I second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
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 Same sign. Next up is the Commissioner's Report. We had 30 permits with construction costs of $771,617. That generated fees of $8,706. We received 136 calls on permits and or information requests. And Lou, you can give me your site visits and inspections too, either now or just before we post the minutes.
Do we need to count? I'll get back to you at the meeting.
You're a feedbacker. Okay. Old business. We have 1802. I did meet with the Perrys. I've met with them twice since we decided that what we were going to do. And I need to just get with Chris, who I see is on here, and get something official written to them, telling them what we expect. And then it's pretty simple from my standpoint. And then Chris, I suppose, will just legal it up. Is that understanding too, Chris?
Yep. Yeah, and I was talking to Dr. May a little bit earlier about this. Larry and I talked a little at the end of last week, kind of got the gist of progress in terms of those conversations. I think that I informed the council, I don't remember if it was the building commission too, that I had been contacted by the Perry's attorney who's involved in the Wilson matter, but he will also participate in this. So he has followed up with me too, and expecting that our form of agreement, and also is interested in getting it reduced to writing so that we're all on the same page and hopefully can put this past us. So.
Could I, this is Joe. Can you guys hear me? Could I see a copy of that letter before it's sent out?
I'll hand deliver it to you, Joe.
Well, I'd like to know what we're going to say before we say it, in case I disagree.
So the big issue is this, my understanding, and so you guys as the commission are the decision makers, we're reducing the terms of what needs to be done to bring the Perrys into compliance into essentially a compliance agreement. A roadmap where the Perrys understand the details of it and what actions are going to be taken and the dates upon which they're going to be done. And because Larry indicated before that some of the things just can't be done now, but we're going to have a written undertaking where they commit to that and that we have the ability to enforce those. So I will, when Larry and I present that agreement, of course, it can't be final or agreed to till this board approves it. So before it's presented to other council, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do.
But all I'm saying is I would like to be able to review that before it's presented to the Perrys to make sure that we're agreeing on the terms of what should be done. I have obviously an opinion, and I'd like to share it before we hand it over to the Perrys.
Okay, Joe, we'll make sure that's done. 1906, that's the same situation. I don't know that that's going to go anywhere unless we, and Chris, I would look to you, unless we just attach, Lou, what is that, 2 years now? So the fine's got to be up to $40,000 by the time it all said and done. Chris, I don't know if we decide on an amount and say, listen, if you pay this, we're going to be okay with it, or do we just, that's something for you to advise us on, but I don't foresee a lot happening there. That house was his parents, and he kind of ran through the whole thing like a bull in a china shop with our department. There were some things that were done correctly and positively through Lou, or positively, I should say, through Lou. And then there were others that were obviously just, I'm going to do what I want. So,
Well, I think that between those that you have on your list that you have been trying to resolve amicably and those that have been decided by the board to pursue, which we are doing, and I've gathered the records, and Joe has been good about compiling some of those things as well as Lou. I will touch base with you directly, Larry, in terms of course, any agreements to resolve, but I don't believe those are best to discuss, especially the litigation portion in the public. So those I will follow up, and when you tell me that you've reached your limit on some of the ones to be resolved, then we could advise from there, and then I will give an update on those other ones outside of that.
okay.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. I've reached the limit on these. We need to establish, put something hard in writing that says, this is how much the fines are, and that includes 1802. How much does it cost us in just legal fees and Larry's time going out there, and we're still going around in a circle.
I don't think we're saying any. I'm right now. I'm doing exactly what we talked about with the Perrys and the other one where Larry is discussing with them. So that part, the ones that you guys have voted, that's different. These are, so you guys have to decide that the Perrys and putting that agreement to place or not, that's your decision. So I don't think.
I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying we've had a stop work order. We've had a stop work order in place on these things for a substantial period of time. That's where the fine should start. And period. It's not our responsibility. We've gone more than 10 miles on this thing. It's not our responsibility to tell them what to do. Perry and this guy at 1906 have not responded properly. And to me, the clock starts when the stop work order was issued. So
I don't disagree on your timing, Pete. I think the only question in my mind is some of that is contrary to what you guys decided last month. So if you guys take a different tack, then I think that one gives Larry a different marching order versus what he's been trying to accomplish, for instance, with the Perrys. I'm with you, Pete, in terms of the holding feet to the fire and getting things done. Just those two are contrary, at least what you're saying today. I don't disagree on the dates or what would start the meter ticking. The only thing that is different, at least my understanding of the last meeting I attended and what the direction you guys give Larry is to not work with them. And so I think that's the decision you guys have to have. And that doesn't matter to me, anything in between.
I think on 1906, we just need to decide. Well, as you said, Chris, and I maybe it's something that we shouldn't discuss because it's a legal matter. I think we just need to decide what that amount is, like you said, Pete. Quantify it, and then just do whatever the court, whatever whatever your end is.
Yeah, so I think that you guys just decide, kind of like you took before, take an action that you want to refer it to legal counsel to move forward with enforcement of the fines and take action on their violations.
Okay.
That's what I want to do. That's my motion. I'm 1906 for sure, right?
I think
I second that motion. I don't think we should be cutting deals with people. The fines are the fines, and they should start when a stop work order is violated. If they want those accumulating fines to stop, they rectify the situation.
Okay, so then I think it's pretty fair to say number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are, we're at that point. There's no sense in continuing to carry them. There's no sense, and I don't mean carrying like carrying their paper, but we'll just move forward. And I'll get with Lou, and then we can figure out the fines, and then we'll just get those to you, Chris, and we'll just pursue it. That way we can take these off next month. We'll just lump them all together and say, you know, this is in this court system now.
And just to tidy it up, Larry, there's a motion and a second. We probably ought to vote it.
Okay, so that motion, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, is to pursue the final legal action on numbers 4 through 10. Correct?
The only reservation I have is about, as much as I hate to say it, 1802, because we have had interim discussions with them and promises made and gifts exchanged.
Let's make it, can we amend that to 5 through 10?
That's fine.
Can I, Larry?
Okay, hold on. I'm so shorthand now.
Larry, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I
Joe. I believe we don't have to use the same motion for 6 and 10, because I believe 6 and 10 should be in motion. Am I correct, Chris? Am I correct, Chris?
Joe, you got a lot of reverb or feedback. I don't know if you have if you have a phone next to your computer. We get a lot of, I'm an old guy, so I'll just call it reverb coming through. I think what you said is we don't need it for 4, 6, and 10.
Right, because it's.
How about we just simplify it and say for 5 through 10, we've hit the final straw. We're going to make sure whether it's a duplication of what we did before or not, let's just include them all so that we're done. Is that fair? Chris, you're muted.
Okay by me, Pete.
Sorry, Joe isn't wrong on those, but the overkill won't hurt either, Larry.
Okay. So the motion is to pursue the final action on numbers 5 through 10. Any more discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that carried. All right, that takes a load off of us. Next up is number 12, or actually the 11, the fence. Lou, I'm going to ask you about that. I don't know if you've had any other conversations with Thayer.
Yeah, no, I've visited the site and looked at what they're doing there. They're replacing an old beat up split rail fence. The pins are in place. It's a straight shot, a single line. They're staying 6 inches within the pins, and it's a simple job.
Okay, so as long as they pay their fine then and applied for the permit, which they already did apply for the permit, I did see that. As long as they pay their fines, then we're okay, correct?
There was no fine in this situation at 1603.
2703.
Number 11.
Number 11.
What is the address? I see 2703. It says fence.
That's it's Elbridge. Is that Elbridge? Elbridge Way, right?
Yes.
Sorry, I went to 1603. I don't know why.
Yeah, sorry. It's 2703 Elbridge.
Elbridge, right? Yeah.
Thayer
Fence is up.
They
They were fined for no building permit.
Right. So if they pay their fines, they did apply for a permit. I saw that come through. So if
One
they-
second, Larry, the air conditioning came on here, I can't hear anything. Hang on. Go again.
They did apply for a permit. I'm pretty sure I saw that come through. So if they pay their fines and their fence meets the conditions, they're okay. Is that correct?
I believe they applied for the permit after
Yes.
I fined them.
Yes, they did. So they have to pay the fine. I guess we just need to check with Bill if they paid the fine.
Yeah, so I would move if they paid the fine, they can build their fence.
Okay.
When, Larry, do you have a date? When did we get that permit?
I don't know, Joe. I don't have all the permits in front of me. I did them electronically this time.
Lou, do you know?
I don't have it in front of me.
You know what I can do at the end of the meeting? I'll search the emails from Deanna so I can find it by address. That's the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
All right. Next up is number 12, 2306 Foxdale, the Tim driveway. At the last deal with that was they needed to combine the lots and get a street cut permit, and we voted to approve it. Joe has some information that they cannot combine the lots because when they bought I'll let Joe tell you.
So in order to combine the lots, when they bought the original property, Mr. Tim signed it as Michael Tim Jr. And then last year, they bought the extra lot. Mr. Tim, years later, only signed it as Michael Tim. So when somebody goes to and also the wife signed it as Patricia. And Patricia D, other one she had over there. So therefore, the deeds on the side, and they just say it's not a major thing, I don't believe. They just have to correct it, so the two deeds would be the same, and then they could combine them. Now, who would be the one to try to explain this to them?
All right. So there's no subterfuge or, hey, we're going to jack around. The bottom line is the permit should be approved. They met all the criteria and they're working on combining the lots. Is that the general consensus from everyone?
Well, Larry, I don't think they're working on it. I don't think they know what they have to do.
Joe, there's such an echo. It's really hard to understand you. Do you have another phone or something that's next to your computer?
Larry, is Joe in the same room with Dr. LeMay right now in the gym?
Yep.
Dr. LeMay, maybe if you mute your microphone, it might help out with
All right.
his reverb coming through you.
All right, Larry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so my comment is I don't disagree that I think this should get approved eventually, but I don't know how well we're communicating. He's communicating. He has to combine these lots, and I don't know if he even knows what his issue is. And I'm just asking who should be conveying this information to him so he knows what he has to do.
I can do that.
Because the other thing, Larry, we're only asking for two things. The other thing we're asking for is, the street cut permit. He should be getting that too.
All right. So Lou, will you convey to Mike Tim that he has to combine the lots, however he has to do it, and get a street cut permit, and then he's going to be in good shape. Okay?
No problem, I'll do it.
All right, sounds
Can I
good.
interrupt here for 1 second, Larry? Is there, I'm just looking at expedience of time and those, and of course you guys are decision makers, but is it possible that you grant it subject to him showing that proof and then you give them their permit, or you prefer not to operate in that realm? I'm just thinking of your time to have to revisit this again and that project not being able to be done. If you approve it subject to him showing proof that they're combined, for instance, and the other stipulations, then that's off of your plate.
Yeah, I think that's the intention.
We actually already did that last month. We approved it subject to the combination of the lots and the street cut.
Okay, all right. So it's there. They just haven't complied to issue it. All right.
We're just waiting on them to get finished up.
Okay.
Thank you.
If he doesn't know how to combine the lots and Lou can't convey that properly, he needs to go down to the recorder and they'll tell him how to do it. And if he has to hire a lawyer, he has to hire a lawyer. But
That's exactly right. Yeah, Joe, and that's what I think we can't get in the business of giving them legal advice. So,
Okay, I'm not disputing that at all. I just did my homework. I called Laporte, and this is the information I got from Laporte. So I'm just sharing that information with you guys.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Number 13, the Vortman property. That's been an ongoing thing. The only reason it's ongoing is to make sure that I keep you guys abreast of what's going on. That's the entire line from stop 29 to the town, from the town property through the town property to the west of the Osborne lots. We just got the drawings yesterday, and I expect to talk to the Vortmans either later today or over the weekend. I see Daryl's on here. I don't know that there's much to discuss right now, but it certainly will come up then at the next meeting with the drawings, and I expect that, and Daryl, I'm asking you, I guess the DNR permit and the Army Corps of Engineers permit.
Correct. We just wanted to get those drawings out there, make sure everybody's in agreement. You know, Osborne, Vortman, Town of Long Beach, make sure everybody's on the same page. Once we get that consensus, we'll go after the permit from the state and from the Army Corps.
Okay.
The sooner we see those permits, the easier it'll be for us to decide. So I would like to see the permits as soon as, the diagrams as soon as possible.
Yeah, I just got them late yesterday. I'll send them off to everybody.
We can't hear Larry, the air conditioning went on again.
Stick your head out the window. That's what my dog does. Next, the house on Hideaway Point. Hold on, let me get the address. 2426 Hideaway Point. There was some concern at the last meeting about covenants from the homeowners association, which there actually are none. Then there was concern about the soil conditions. They have since come back to us with an engineer's report and a sufficient demucking, or they're going to take out all the unstable soil, put stable soil back in, compact it, and build the house. The house meets the other requirements of our zoning ordinances, unless I've missed something. So that's all we were waiting for, which we just got last week. I'm pretty sure, Lou, wasn't it last weekend when we had all the calls every day on the weekend and 3 on Sunday? So,
And the height, that 27 feet was corrected. You guys are happy with that?
yes.
Yes.
Any other questions on that one as far as the permit is concerned? That one probably should take a motion if.
Move to approve.
Second, Coker.
This Pete, I just have a question.
Sure.
I think we need to have a copy of these covenants.
You know, Pete, supposedly there are none. I know that when the original Hidden Shores, and the only reason I know this is because we built some of those places years ago. The original Hidden Shores, which is, I can't remember what's the street that goes by Hacienda?
Fairway?
Fairway. The original house is on Fairway. We did a couple of those on both the golf course side and the lake side. And at that point in time, there were covenants that had to be adhered to because that's all a peat bog back there. Since then, from what I understand, there has been they've either dissolved that association or voted to change the covenants or do away with them, because we not only heard from Mary Lou McFadden, I heard from the I talked to I can't think of the guy's name.
Luderbach?
That lives back there, and there are no more. They don't force anybody to do anything. And it may be because this is part of, I'm assuming it's like other, and I guess, Chris, I would ask you for maybe some advice or some input here. It's kind of like Chris always says to us, you know, the right-of-way situation depends on which part of Long Beach that you are talking about. Some areas like the Shoreland Hills subdivision may have some different lot rules than the Long Beach addition 2 or whatever. So I think this is the last addition to that Hidden Shores area. And the understanding that I have is that there are no covenants. It's prudent building practice, but.
Well, and
I
the answer we could get them from the county. And so that particular address we can inquire and receive. I mean, the problem is that shouldn't be the town's expense to provide those. It's really, it's more that is more of a private issue of whatever those covenants are. I don't know about the existence, but
They said it'd show up if they got their title insurance, it'd show up in the title insurance when they bought the property, so.
that's right. And if they don't have them, certainly the real estate office can quickly determine whether there are any recorded that apply to that.
Well, we need to get that because, I mean, there is a homeowners association. If there's an association, there's got to be an agreement. And if there's an agreement, that's what we need to see. So, and they keep saying there's a homeowners association. They can't have one. I'm sure not doing it by handshake. And associated with that, and maybe the building rules cover it. You know, this business about clearing out down to the muck and swamping the lot and all that kind of stuff. That's got to be somewhere. And that's if that's something that needs to be done, then we need to incorporate that or make sure it's incorporated in our the rules that we adopt, the state rules that we adopt. So, I mean, there's something going on here, and I think it's important for us to know what those requirements are. If they're special, fine. If they're not, fine.
Do you want me, will you give me the address? My office can call and get those.
Okay, it's
2426 Hideaway Point.
Okay. We will see if there's any covenants or declarations filed.
So why don't we do this? If everybody would Bob, would you amend your motion to that we approve it based on receipt of and adherence to the covenants that Chris is going to get? You're muted, but I take that as
So amended.
John Coker, are you okay with on
I'll
that?
second that amendment.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that one's carried. this next one's pretty simple. The 1636 Zafir Rizvi, I talked to him earlier in the week. There was, Haas had sent some people out last week to do the survey work. The town has hired Haas to engineer a solution to the water problem down there. And I told Mr. Rizvi that I would, maintain contact with him, and I have. He's satisfied. Unfortunately, it's the pace of what Haas gets back to us. The goal is to resolve all of the draining issues there, the drainage issues there, be it town issues or private drainage issues. It may be that we can resolve it in talking to Tim Haas and my brother who was working with Haas. It may be that we can get it all resolved up at the street level. It may not. It may have to, there may still have to be a pipe that's run down. Mr. Rizvi's concern is that he wants to get it taken care of before winter. And I certainly cannot say that will happen, but my hope is that once the engineering comes through, that it would go through the town council fairly quickly to get that resolved. Because the town does have a couple of pipes down there that we've had some problems with as well. Any comments or discussion about that? Okay, moving on. 16, that's Lou, the one you were talking about, 3016 Northmore, the fence. Sounds like everything's good there.
No, that's not it. That's not the one I was talking about. I was talking about 1603 Blinks.
Larry,
Yeah.
we do recognize that, and I'm a bit confused, that 20-7-100 was a building permit that we gave these guys on July 10th. So
maybe I
is
left
there something else going on, or did we?
No, Joe, that's a correction. Let's just take it off then. That's my mistake. One of many I've already made today.
Okay, so that's fine because we did issue a building permit.
We'll just take that off.
Okay.
3002 Lakeshore Drive, we denied that permit based on the work was okay that was going to be done, but they cannot do any work from the lakeside because that is then in the public domain or public right of way or whatever you call it. So they had an engineer come in. Daryl, was that you?
Yes, I went out there, met Phil Liss and his contractor on site.
Okay, so they've determined that they're going to do all the work from the land side or the house side of the seawall, and there would be no reason why we would deny the permit. They're basically plugging up leaks in the seawall and putting in proper drainage behind the wall.
Correct.
All right. Larry?
Yeah.
Just for clarity, when we approve this permit, the one procedure, and I think I saw an email that you had sent earlier, a couple of days ago, that all the builders have to send the documents to Deanna, so we have them officially in. They could send emails to you or to Lou, but all the documents have to end up with Deanna as a central point, so we have all the control of all the documents. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So Daryl, that's all we're asking.
Right.
And that's paper copies.
Eric did send those to Deanna. That's actually what prompted me to send the email, was because Eric had sent the stuff to me, and I said it has to go through the town clerk. That's our gatekeeper. So that's what prompted the email, and he has sent those to Deanna so that she could see them.
In paper copy?
Yes. I'm assuming so. That's what I told him. Any other discussion?
I make a motion to approve.
Pete, we have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 2310, the slabs at the right of way, I did go down and check them out. I sent an email off to the owner and asked him to either have his landscaper contact me or give me his landscaper's email and phone. And I would talk to him about getting those out of the 48-inch area because they could be considered curbs and an impediment to walkers, joggers, and especially the street plows. I have not heard back. And this morning when I went, or yesterday when I went by there, I thought I'm just going to send them one more email and say, I'm trying to do this amicably rather than have the street department come and pick the slabs up. And if I don't get a response to that, then I don't know what else to do outside of having Tom just go pick them up.
I think
There's also plantings on that lot or in that right of way. And it's not going to be very long before those plantings get too big and create a hazard also. Also, 2308, the property next door, that's Casa del Lago, their plantings have gotten too big and are putting pedestrians at risk. I think we need to address that. I think plantings can start off okay, but some plants get too big and create a hazard for people trying to walk along the side of the road.
You're talking about the Shoal House, Bob?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll stop and talk to them about getting them cut back.
Is this the time to have a conversation about right of way? Because I disagree with the approach that you guys are taking. And I tried to send out an email to show everybody what our ordinances have and when our ordinance talk about right of way and our ordinance talk about the front yard, which are two distinct areas. And it sure looks to me clear and simple that trees belong in the front yard and trees do not belong in the right of way. And you guys are using some 4 feet. It doesn't belong in the right of way at all. And I don't know what else to say except read the ordinances. And I even sent a page where there's a figure and the figure shows exactly, it has labeled right of way. And it also has labeled front yard. And they're two distinct areas. They abut each other, but they're distinct areas. And I'm just talking about trees. I could get into other things that don't belong in the right of way. But for this conversation, trees do not belong in the right of way, which happened at 2022, where they put in large trees or whatever they are. And you did, Larry, have them move them back slightly, but they're still in the right of way. And which I think somebody did, maybe you pointed out, that does cause them in danger as they back up their cars into Lakeshore Drive. They can't see, and that corner at stop 22, there's probably not one that's the most, but that's a very, very busy corner. And there's danger there all the time. If we don't think that we have Lakeshore Drive, which is platted as 50 feet wide, and we're probably using about 20 feet for car traffic, bike traffic, runners, walkers, moms pushing their children down the same 20 feet.
Hey, Joe. let's have this discussion, but can we have it after we get through these specific permits?
Whatever you guys think, I'm just saying, I don't agree with the approach
understand,
we're taking on a couple
but
of
I'd
these
like
things.
I understand, but I'd like to get through our permits and then we can have the discussion about the right of way. Okay? I mean, we can do it today, don't get me wrong. I just want to get through our stuff here. So Bob, the 2310 slabs, I'm going to send the email out, or not Bob, everybody. I'm going to send the email out one more time. And then, as I said, I don't know what else to do. I had a fairly straightforward and good relationship with the owner. I don't know why it hasn't been resolved.
Well, Larry, if you could also check on that property next door too, that's, I think, creating a hazard.
I'll stop at the Shoal place and talk to them.
And Larry, just one other thing, not that Lou needs another thing added, but, section 94.99 lends a little weight to, there are penalties if you go that route. So to get it off center, not that you want to write violations for everything, but, that is the enforcement mechanism for someone that's putting things that don't belong on the rights of way. So.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. The Stop 31 sign, I think we're done with that, right? Or are we not?
Larry,
Yeah.
I had one of the residents has come to me at different times and has said that sign was replaced at a specific time where new posts were put in, and he says that he would take a whatever the right word is, a deposition or something, to testify when that was happening because he visually saw it. He sent out emails, and also what he had said is that in the ground or in the concrete where the posts are, they put the date when they put the new post in. So this is just not a sign that's been there forever. This sign, according to this gentleman, has changed. So he's willing to come forward to do whatever we think is proper.
Well, I'm sure it probably has changed. I'm sure the post rotted out and they probably had to replace the post. But I can tell you from living here since 1964, at least in the 70s, that sign was there. And so were those.
But Larry, what I guess he's talking about is there was a sign, but we don't know if it was the sign, and we don't know the size.
I understand
of
that.
the old sign relative to the size of the new sign.
Joe, stop. I understand that. I don't need the third rendition of the same thing over and over again. But
okay, well, you asked the question if there's any questions, Larry, and I'm answering your question.
All right, Joe, I don't want to mute you, but I'm going to have to if you keep interrupting
Larry,
me.
fine. Then mute me and I'll leave right now. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Don't start threatening me.
Bye. The sign's been there. It's been in the same place. My office used to be right behind that building. They may have replaced the sign. I'm sure the sign has been replaced 4 or 5 times over the course of its lifetime because the old sign rotted. So if we want to go down and tell these people you can't have the sign there, that's fine. But you have to give me some direction. There is no argument that the sign is new and hasn't been there and whatever. It has been there. And it's been there for a minimum of 50 years. So did they replace the sign? I'm sure they have, just like I replaced my mailbox post 2 or 3 times since I've lived in my house for 30 years. But it's because the post rotted, not because I moved the sign out in the street or anything else. That doesn't mean that it's a brand new sign and it's a new location. Those telephone poles that are still there, those poles have been in the ground since our office was there in 1976, or pardon me, 1980 or 77. So what do you guys want me to do? Do you want me to tell them, look, we know your sign's old. We know it's been there for 50 years. We know your telephone poles have been in the ground for 50 years. We want you to take it out because it's against the rules. That's what the issue is. The issue isn't whether the sign was fixed, repaired, or replaced. The issue is, what do you want me to tell them?
Well, and Larry,
Wouldn't it be grandfathered in? I mean, it's been there long enough.
as Mr. Coker's alluding to, I think that's the spinning our wheels with this same issue. To me, if that sign was replaced, and I want to make sure we're using the same thing, if Joe is saying in the last 2 years, 3 years, if it was replaced in its entirety since the non-conforming ordinances were passed, for instance, or the zoning, and then it was changed, I think that's different than has it been replaced over the years. And so that might be the crux of the question and how you move forward, and then it being allowed to be there over a period of years. So yes, there's new owner. You guys have to decide, but I'm not certain, as Joe is saying, this, the resident, citizen, or whomever has come to him, I don't know what the timing we're talking about, because it does seem that it was repaired or spruced up. Lisa was on one of the meetings, right? Lisa Moore, who's the owner of MTM, who said she did have work done. Is that the replacement everybody's talking about, or is it a previous time? And is it grandfathered in because that sign existed before? And that part is what we're missing, that piece of information.
If that strip of property was acquiesced sometime around 2012, along with one of the buildings there that was used for was a rental property, and what we allowed the person with the rental property to do, we made an agreement that since his business was established before it was acquiesced into the town, that he could continue that business as long as he didn't let it go idle. So, and so I don't believe the, what used to be the Carlson real estate thing was included in that agreement, but it certainly should be, or is in the same bailiwick. The only thing I would say, and we can produce that acquiescence agreement, it was settled out of court. The only thing I would say is if somebody can prove that the sign was moved, that's a different story. But if they repair it in place and they paint it, and as long as they don't illuminate it and all that kind of stuff that goes against the current ordinance, then it should exist, and another property in that area was allowed to continue as a commercial operation, even though that's not listed as a commercial district on the town zoning.
I agree, or Pete, you hit it on the head of the non-conforming and the being grandfathered in. So really the main issue is if they expanded or somehow expanded the non-conforming sign or somehow discontinued it and rebuilt it, which that doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't look like they built a new one or bigger one, or sorry, new is probably inaccurate, but a bigger one expanded that. So that part of it, I think the core issue is it appears to be grandfathered in unless somehow it was increased or they did something without a variance or the town's blessing.
To me, the thing is, if they moved it, that's a problem. If they did something else to it, I don't know how we fight that issue, but they shouldn't have moved it because it was a commercial operation established in place. That's it.
Okay. And Pete, I didn't even think about that. That wasn't even part of Long Beach when the sign was first placed.
That's right.
And that's a whole different story. So I don't know. So what do you guys want me to do? You want me to go take my chainsaw and cut the sign off tonight?
No.
All right, then we'll move on. All right, now we'll go to the spreadsheet. Most of these, Lou, I think you and Joe met earlier today. You want to tick these off so that we don't waste time on them, starting on that spreadsheet from 1 to 25. I think there's only about 4 or 5 that really need our attention.
Right, sure. 1603 Blinks Ave is a fence. We found the pins that the fence is going from one end to the other end of the property, straight shot within outside of 6 inches from the property line. I've seen the job. It should be approved.
Okay. The Foxdale, we already had that conversation. 2410 Lakeshore Drive. You had said that there was some work done there. The one permit that he submitted had a legal pad that had some chicken scratch on it, and I have no idea what he's proposing or what he wants.
Right. Yeah, neither does he. What we did approve on this job was a deck over existing coverage, and that was one of the things that was in the hodgepodge of chicken scratch that they forward to us. Bottom line is they don't really know what they want to do, and we certainly don't have enough information to approve anything because we really don't know what the hell they want to do. This is no decision necessary here.
Did we approve
2930. Sorry?
Did we approve the deck?
We did approve the deck.
Okay, so some portion of the permit was approved?
No, Pete.
No, there's no permit. There's no application for anything else besides the deck.
We approved the permit 20-7-112, and that permit was part of other things, but one was the deck, and that permit we approved. But this other permit is there.
Okay, I'm with you. Go ahead. Next, item 4.
Very similar situation, 2930 Mount Clair. There's been Doomland Landscape has presented some paperwork that looks a lot like the chicken scratching from the other Murphy. Anyway, they have not presented where they want the retaining wall to be, and when they do, we will have a decision to make. Until then, we don't. There's not enough information to approve anything.
All right, so
2500.
we don't need to have any discussion about that.
Right, 2500. John Doyle is looking at replacing a retaining wall on the lake side, which is actually 2500 and not 2501. There's an existing parking area, gravel, with rotting railroad ties holding the retaining wall up. Their request is to replace the railroad ties with landscape timbers to continue to hold the wall up and put new gravel in on the existing site. The one thing that I have discussed with them is there's 2 wings, if you will, to the retaining wall that go from the wall to the street. And I've told them that no structure is allowed to be in that area, and so they have said that they will have the ends to that retaining wall flush to grade, so there will be no structure above grade on either side of this parking area. Otherwise, it's a remove and replace.
The other thing, Lou, when you talk to them, Joe brought this up yesterday when we were having a discussion. He's got at least 3, if not 4, 6x6 white timbers buried or vertically painted white to stop people from parking there. He's got to remove those. Those are an impediment to not only traffic, snowplows, but they're way too close to the pavement. So when they're doing this work, they need to take those out.
Will do. Okay. Does anybody want to have further discussion or make a motion here?
I'll make a motion if it's needed. I think it's just,
I don't think we need a motion on this one. I just as long as we clarify what he can and can't do. Joe brought up another thing, which is a right-of-way discussion, which, Joe, I'm assuming you'll add this onto your discussion at the end of the meeting here.
Larry, Larry?
Yeah.
Well, the only question that I had is I saw that you sent him an email, and you were asking for the street permit drawings for yourself. We can't.
Lou,
I think Lou needs to mute.
I was wondering if you were.
Lou needs to mute.
Pardon?
Okay, Joe, you have to go again. Lou had to mute himself. Will you start over?
All I'm saying is I saw an email from you, Larry, which was on July 14th to Dan's Landscaping. And I just wondered if you received, and what you showed him is they were asking you questions of what they needed. And you had said a building permit application, which we have, a street cut permit. I don't know if we ever got one. Drawings for what you are proposing, lot coverage calculations, survey or site plan showing lot dimensions and setbacks. I don't know if all of that was necessary, but I just wonder if you received any of that.
When I sent that out, because of what they had on their permit, I thought this was new. I didn't understand at that time that it was, all they were replacing was the retaining wall that's failing.
Okay.
Subsequently,
thank you.
I talked to the owners of the landscape company, and he said, no, we're just replacing the wall that's failing. So that negated the need for what I told them we needed. Lou, 2204 Fairway.
We moved that a couple of weeks ago.
Unmute yourself.
We approved
Sorry.
that. You got to let.
Yeah, right. We approved that a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Next is,
Stuff. Okay. 2814. I didn't see coverage.
This is Keith Chandler. He's presented an application in a survey. The survey shows that his garage is in the side setback. And secondly, we don't have any coverage calculations from him yet. So we don't have enough information to make a decision here.
Okay.
We will see that at the next meeting.
When you talked to him, the first thing I noticed was the no coverage calculations. And it appears that he's going to have to tone down his patio area because I think he's going to be over. But as long as he provides that, that's fine. Ed Nichols, 2002 Idlewood, that's already, I've talked to him, you've talked to him. You did issue him a ticket, which he's paid, I understand.
Yes, I believe he's paid.
Okay. Next up is 2027 Oriole. That is something that was at the BZA, and I explained to Kevin that he had to resubmit his information to us, which he did. The BZA, and Joe had a question about this, and I'm not going to speak for Joe. He can speak for himself. The BZA gave Kevin the approval to do what he needed to do. But Joe, you want to speak to what your issue was?
Right. On what we got back from the BZA.
Lou, mute your microphone.
Lou, are you on? Can you mute?
Sorry.
Okay. Number one said the standard variation is granted as relief only underlined from section 154.134 of the zoning code as petitioners previously withdrew their request for relief from 154.057. And I was trying to catch up and review all my work, and I didn't understand why that was pulled, the 154.057. And because I thought when we presented this a long time ago to them, that there was part, and I don't have the specifics, so I apologize for that. There's part of an existing structure of some sort. I can't remember whether it was a deck or was something, was within the 30 feet. I think it was like 27 feet or something like that. And I think that's the ordinance. For some reason, they decided they didn't have to abide by that one. So that was my confusion. And I honestly haven't had enough time to review it, but I just wanted to share my thoughts with everybody.
And Joe, just to clarify, I don't think, and because I was present at the BZA portion of it, I don't think it was that they didn't have to abide by it. They didn't feel like they needed to seek a variance from the requirements of the ordinance as it applies to their project. Right or wrong, I'm not making any, just as the BZA was very careful not to pass any decision because that's not asked for. It wasn't a compliance issue, as they didn't feel like they needed to vary from the requirements.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And you said it better than I did, and I don't disagree with you. But my question is, I have to look at that ordinance, why it was even brought up. They must have brought it up. We must have brought it up to them. And then why, whatever. That's all I'm saying. I'm just perplexed a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, what originally happened, and Kevin is here, he's on the meeting. What originally happened is Kevin applied for his permit. We denied it, and like I do with everybody, I list the ordinances that they would be in violation of. And one of the ones was, I don't have the number, but it's the one that Joe read. And that is, I think it's the nonconformity property, right, Joe?
I think, I have to double check it real fast, but I don't have a book with me.
And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the front part of your house, there's a section that is over the setback. Is that correct?
It's an existing deck that was there when we bought the house.
Right.
And the new portion that we want to build onto that deck is in compliance with the current ordinance. So the existing portion of the deck, I believe, was 27 and some feet from the street. The new portion of the deck is going to be set back at, I believe, 30 or 31, because the street tails off there. And the other issue was that our garage that was built in 1967 was not in compliance. So that was the section.
Right. And that was the reason why I sent that, was because of the garage. The garage sits off to the back and facing the house, the left-hand side, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's to the west of the house.
Right. So that is the reason I included that. So the BZA has said, and I think that's what Chris is saying, we're not going to give you relief on a garage that's existing because it's already existing. Is that correct, Chris?
I think it's a little even clearer. The cruises, it wasn't even giving relief. They made the decision after consulting with council, they didn't need that. So if it's not necessary, that's why, and for those who have attended those meetings, Mr. Gorman tries to delve out exactly the relief that's being sought and so that it's accurate. And in my understanding, and please correct me, Mr. Cruz, is ultimately that was withdrawn because they didn't feel like it was necessary, so it was not passed on. And then the findings and decisions that the BZA tends to grant want to make it clear so that it's easier on you when residents like the Cruzes come back, easier for you to make a decision. So the long and the short is that relief wasn't asked for because they determined that it wasn't necessary, which sounds like, Larry, maybe you're saying that same thing.
Right. So I'm of the opinion, and it's just me, that they've met the criteria to issue the permit. The BZA gave them the variance. Everything else fits the ordinances.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll
Pete,
second. Joker.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
You're all invited to the deck party when it's done.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. Lou, I cut
Larry,
jackpotted you.
make it short for you. The next three, 2620 Belle Plaine, 2711 Belle Plaine, and 2807 Belle Plaine were all approved.
Okay. All right, so that takes us down to
Right,
seven.
yeah, there's no issues with any of those.
Okay, that takes us down to 1704 Story Ave. Joy, I'm assuming, do you know, this was kind of another chicken scratch where I'm not sure what's happening here. Do you know much
Right.
about it, Joy? Or Lou?
No, but Lou does.
Okay,
Right, I can explain what's going on here. They've called this build out here, it's actually simply a bay window. They show the measurement of it actually to be toward, what was it, 24 inches or
24 by 9.
24 inches by 5 feet. It's simply a bay window, which of course does actually, by the shadow concept, change coverage. She has well over 2 acres of property. She did send in some not very legible copies of a survey, showing that she's got a lot of land. It's a no-brainer, but the application is a little more difficult than it is. Should be approved.
okay. I don't know that we need a vote on that. I just didn't understand the way it was. That was the survey that was in like 6 pieces, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody, I'm fine with that, and I don't know that we need to have an actual vote on it. 2604 Shorewood Drive, I've called Mr. Grunceski. His calculations were incorrect, and he is trying to get his survey together, and so that will that'll probably come up next month when he gets all his information back together. 2701.
Larry, to make it easier for you, 2701, Roslyn, 2511, and 2509 have been approved.
Lou and
Okay.
Joy not to mute.
Pardon?
Okay, thanks, Joe. Next up is, oh wait, we already did one. The 2426 Hideaway was approved based on, Chris is going to get us the covenants.
Larry, will you clarify that address again, please? I think I wrote it down wrong.
2426 Hideaway Point.
Yeah, then we tried to pull that. All right, because we had already called while we were sitting here, and for whatever reason, the county can't find it. But
You know what? It may be new.
okay,
Somebody might have to go on Beacon and look on either side to see what those addresses are.
and give me their name again.
Van, V-A-N, Gemeren, Gemeren.
Oh yes, okay, thanks.
Okay. 1402 Lakeshore Drive. I've talked to Tom Wagner from Wagner Custom Builders. There's a couple of things that on this drawing, there are window wells and a few other things that are in the setbacks. I was looking at it on computer screens only. Joe, I know you have hard copies of the drawings, but Tom is going to get back with his architect on this, and get those corrected so that they're not in the setbacks and get the dimension lines on for the 106 line and a couple other dimension lines on there. Other than that, the height, it meets the height restrictions. There's no other issues as far as the front setback and the rear setback. It's really the setbacks on the side that need to be corrected. I hesitate to deny the permit because I think that starts everything anew again. I would prefer to just make sure that everybody looks at it. And then when Tom gets back to me with the correct information or passable, let's say it, information, I can get it all out to you guys and then we can look at it. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah. Larry?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Which is, it's just,
I don't know,
I'm just
Joe.
curious, because this is the home that went to the BZA and they got the sewer system, if that's the right word, put in for them. And I'm just wondering, and I haven't looked at it in detail, does this sewer system affect anything with the building of the building? Or is this something new that we've never seen? Is there any trick to this with having a separate sewer system now that they have in front of the house, I believe?
The sewer house was actually not by these people. It was done by the previous owner or the person that sold the land to the Sullivans. And that was approved through the BZA. And Pete, I guess I would ask Pete, I think you were involved in that, Pete, when this whole thing came up.
Larry?
Yeah.
If I could just get a second here. That, of course, that it's a private sewer line, which the agreement I attached with the permit and the sewer line has already been approved. The agreement with Long Beach, I've already talked to Michigan City Sanitary District. They're in line with it. Dan Versaw is going to be doing it because he's certified by the state to do so. And he is already approved by Michigan City Sanitary District to do the final install of the private sewer line.
Okay, so
Pete,
my question wasn't, thank you, Joe. But my question wasn't, do we have the proper approvals? I was just wondering, Larry, being in the business for all these years, if there's anything new, that causes any issues. And I guess the answer is probably no.
Well, if they have the approval and they have the sewer line there, I think it's better for the town. But I'm going to ask Pete because I think, Pete, weren't you involved somewhat in this?
I can speak to this, Joy.
Or Joy?
Yes. They were allowed to put in a low-pressure sewer system with the agreement that when a sewer goes into Lakeshore Drive, that they will abandon their low-pressure system and hook into the Michigan City Sanitary Sewer.
Correct, and that is understood.
Okay, so Joe, does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, I have a direct question. I was just kind of curious. Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. So, as I said, I'd prefer not to deny the permit because, as we know, that starts the clock all over again. So let Tom get with his architect and get the drawings corrected and get those encroachments removed. And then he'll get it back to me and I'll get it back to you guys and we can move at that time. Is everybody all right with that? Okay.
Do we need, why don't we just approve it based on your final approval so we don't have to waste time meeting next month?
I'm fine with that.
I move to approve with Larry's approval.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Are you sure Joe's mic's on? I haven't heard any nays lately.
There's a horse in the barn.
All right, Larry,
Yeah, I knew
I
it
know
was
you're,
coming.
you're not gonna, I don't know how you're gonna feel, but can I talk about this next one for a minute, please?
Yeah, 2631 Oriole, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Larry. I'll get with you in the week.
All right.
I did it because I realized that the party went to the BZA for approval for certain issues. And I said, oh, great, everything else, they went there first and we haven't seen anything. And then I just started looking at the findings of the BZA and I started looking at the permit. And I don't think it's a big deal, but I think there's some definitions or some understanding of the property. I'm not even talking about the building or anything else. I'm just talking about the property. Because if I look at it, and I called the real estate people in LaPorte, and I wanted to make sure that using the platting, when they platted these properties, that the 3 lots, and this is where I wanted to be clear, is I know, Larry, you and I seem to disagree a little bit here, but I'll use the word 3 lots because the lots that this party owns, I believe, after talking to LaPorte, is that they own lot 3, lot 4, and lot 5. So they own those 3 lots. Now, it appears in a little bit of the work that I did that at some point in time early, because this has been going on maybe over a year, at some point in time early, the party might have been thinking, this is an assumption from some of the results I found, they were thinking that possibly, 3's too many, I could do it in 1.5. So when they went to the BZA and when they did their appeal and they attached an exhibit A, which is incorporated, and to talk about the property, the exhibit had all of lot 5 and part of lot 4. So what they submitted to the BZA was only half of the property that she's submitting to us, even though on the building permit application, it's stated as lot 3 and lot 4. I believe from the little research that I did that it's actually lot 3, lot 4, and lot 5. So I'm just looking for some clarity to make sure that we all can agree on what property this home wants to be built on. That's number one. And then number two, a simpler thing, and I think, Pete, you're probably more versed at this than anybody else, is 2631 Oriole Trail, I believe, is the number that was given by the APC, but it hasn't yet been disseminated to the outside world. Now, I don't know at what frame does the house have to be built? Is the house being built? I think it falls into Bill's lap also. So before I even looked at the building itself or the structure or the land, I just tried to understand these two things. I don't think 2631 is an issue, but people don't know it because it's not been published anyplace. And I don't know what the timing for publishing the address is. But the first issue is I'd like all of us to agree, whether I'm wrong, which I don't think I am, but it's possible, that the lots that she has are lot 3, lot 4, and lot 5. Those are the lots she has, and I want to make sure, and whatever I believe, and I need clarity, maybe Chris, maybe this is a question for you, that the BZA ruled on lot 5 and half of lot 4. So whatever the BZA ruled on, I don't think applies to this permit. So that's where I'm going to. And the bookstore.
My understanding, those lots have been separated.
Well, hold on.
There's only 2 lots now.
Hold on. So a couple of things here. And I'm Megan Applegate's on here, so we can ask her a couple of questions, but a couple of things. The variance that Megan sought was for retaining walls that would extend past into the setback. And that variance was granted, I believe. But the design, because of 2 lots, the design of the house changed, with septic issues, driveway issues. So that variance is no longer needed. The drawings that you have before you that Megan or her builder submitted a couple of weeks ago no longer have retaining walls. The driveway comes up from the western lot and then comes up into the house. So there's no retaining walls. So the variance really is a non-issue. I told Megan last week or 2 weeks ago, include your BZA paperwork just so that there's no issue with down the road, even though you're not going to use a variance. I mean, just because you're granted the variance doesn't mean you have to use it. From the lot standpoint, and I'm going to ask Megan to chime in here, I've always understood that it was 2 lots that Megan bought. And at one point in time, there was consideration because the lots were large enough where there could be 2 homes built. But it came down to, could there be 2 homes built with what she wanted to do with 1 home and then sell the other lot off, or I think her brother may have been interested in it. So she has chosen not to do that. And certainly we can ask Megan if she has combined the lots. I don't know. So Meg, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So in talking with, well, obviously in the very beginning, yes, Joe, that was the initial intent, was to build on half and then sell the remaining half. But because of the strict rules in Long Beach, it wouldn't have been a viable option for somebody else to build on that other half because of the various ordinances, the topography, the setback rules, all the different, complications that come with the lot. So at that point, the decision was switched in order to obey all the different rules for Long Beach. And also, like Larry said, because of septic issues and the driveway as well, was to build over the entire parcel, which is now combined into one parcel as 1 lot. So originally it was lots, I believe 3, 4, and 5 that was originally purchased. And it was all purchased though, same ownership. Then it was subdivided into 2 per the request of the BZA when the initial thought was to build on half. But then further along, again, like Larry said, because of the septic issues, the topography ordinance, what driveway, what have you, it was then decided more land's better and just to build on the entire 3 lots. The APC required me most recently to combine the 2 subdivided lots into 1 in order to get an address and to go for the septic permit with the county. So that was a request from the Long Beach APC to combine it into 1 lot. So it went from 3 to 2 to 1, all the same owner, all the same time from day 1 to today, no differences. So, and my contractor's on here too, Matt, if you have any questions, but the variances are a moot point because the goal is to not even need those because there's more space on the lot to abide by all the rules within the county and Long Beach as well.
And just to add a little bit, I just want to point out that going through this process, Megan is the first person that any of the attorneys that I spoke to have history of dealing with zoning and subdivisions and those kinds of things. The first person that anybody can remember that actually went through the process the right way and got the variances and did the subdivision, and then ultimately it doesn't need it. But I feel compelled to point it out because she actually did go through the proper way, and you know, the town has worked hard on trying to make sure some of these lots aren't piecemealed and working with the county to have heads up on these so that people aren't skirting. So, you know, Megan, if there's anybody who, since I've been involved and from what I can tell from everybody else, has gone above and beyond, she certainly has.
That's because she's a CPA.
Now, let me.
So, Joe,
Can I just asked the question for clarity.
Sorry.
I think you agreed with me, Megan, but I just wanted to make sure that what you originally bought is lot 3, 4, and 5.
Correct.
correct?
When it was listed with the realtor, yes, it was being sold as one, I guess, package deal. But yes, at that point was subdivided into 3 lots. That is correct.
Yeah, you bought the 3 lots, and presently those 3 lots are combined into the property that you presented to us for a building.
That is correct.
So, and just for simplistic, and again, it's very petty, but actually on the permit, you probably should be saying lots 3, 4, and 5.
Not if they're combined, right?
No, what's combined?
Are we saying everything's combined, or you mean from the legal description, Joe?
Well, yeah, she's just giving a description where it says lots. And she says lots 3 and 4. If you're going to say it at all, you'd say lots 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
On Beacon, it's one parcel, but yes, you're correct. It says lots 3 through 5, block 10 on Beacon. So if you want to get, technical, yes, that is
Yes,
correct.
that's all I was trying to do. And because in the other one that when you went to the BZA, which it's gone, you called it lot 5 plus part of lot 4.
Right. But that's because she was asked to do that. So the bottom line here is we've got one parcel that's combined. The house fits all of our ordinances. There is no variance that was granted required, and there would be no reason not to issue the permit.
I make a motion to approve. Welcome to Long Beach, Megan.
I'll second, Joy.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, moving on.
One last thing. The address only needs to be posted with the post office. When that's done, you'll start receiving all the same junk we receive.
And then Peter, how does Laporte get the address?
They get it from the post office or whatever.
Is that the direction? Okay, we don't have to give it to the Laporte?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, 2701 Roslyn Trail. Lou, you got any input on this?
Yes, I do. I visited the site, talked to the contractor. There's full sets of prints, full size on this, done by Heidi Hornaday. And basically what this is tearing down a deck over a garage and putting up a one-room addition, as well as the garage underneath, where the deck was, and then putting up a deck next to it, adding some coverage, but there's already existing coverage there. Fate has done the side setback, all setback calculations and measurements here, and they comply. The total coverage with the addition is 32%. The property is compliant in all ways to allow for this addition of volume and new coverage. It looks to me like as if they're completely compliant and this project should be allowed.
Okay, I thought the same thing, but I knew you were had paid more time or spent more time looking at it. So I would recommend as well that it be approved.
I'll move to approve, Joy.
Second?
I'll second, Coker.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On a side note, Chris's office just sent the covenants for the 24-26 hideaway. I'll read through them and I'll get back to everybody either later today or tomorrow morning. Thanks, Chris. And I think it says you can't raise chickens, right?
You can, maybe just not legally.
Yeah. Next up is 1806 Lakeshore Drive. Tom and Tina Vajoyevich, and Tom's on here, as well as Daryl from Edgewater and Carl from JCI. I'll tell you what I know about what's happened here. I think everybody is kind of familiar because I brought it up at the last meeting when we gave Tom and Tina permits to move their septic tank or put in additional septic tanks for a pump and haul up on Lakeshore Drive. So this was a house that was built or rehabbed several years ago. Our infamous seawall builders came down and built a seawall on only two sides of the property, on the north side or lakeside and on the east side. They left the west side open. So the Vajoyeviches obviously didn't know that at the time and probably didn't know it when they built the house or had the house renovated. So when the lake came up, there was quite a bit of erosion and it exposed their septic system. So I went down and I met with them and met with JCI, and that system was abandoned. They went on a pump and haul. Now, if you look at an aerial view, you'll see that there were some temporary measures, some temporary sandbags that were installed down at that sheet piling. So if you were to look at that right now, you would see two sides of the wall, the east side and the north side still there. And then you would see erosion has come around and the bluff that heads to the west is behind that wall. On the east side of that property is is everybody familiar with Stop 19 where you walk down and then Brennan's have the house at the end of 18 where there's this concrete slope wall on top of steel sheet piling. And then there are three, I think it's either 3 or 4 houses that all have the exact same slope wall on top of steel sheet piling down there. So that house, or the Vajoyevich's home, is where that concrete slope wall stops. And then this hootenanny steel sheet piling wall was installed, which was more harm than it did good. So at the time, there was a lot of discussion we had at meetings at Tom and Tina's home about, what can be done here. And the ordinances, the shore protection ordinance pretty much calls out, you have to be 5 feet from the foundation. And everybody's familiar with all of those items. At one point in time, and I can't even tell you how it happened, Tom had sent me some pictures. And I looked at the pictures, and there's a wood wall where the slope walls, I'm sorry this is taking so long, but you got to have a setup so you understand. To the east of them, where the concrete slope wall is on top of steel sheet piling, these old pictures, probably from the 70s when the water was down, might even be the 60s, you can see where this concrete slope wall is, and then you'll see where the concrete slope wall stops at the Vajoyevich property at 1806, and there's a steel sheet piling wall that was driven into the ground. And on top of that wall is railroad ties, and what they did was, I don't know if they're welded on or if they were bolted on. They bolted some channel and then also some light gauge I-beams or H-pile, and they dropped these railroad ties between those H piles. And that was, at the time, that was what retained the hill behind them. And it is in line with the slope wall and the steel sheet piling wall of the other properties. And it's on top of the old steel sheet piling wall. Is everybody kind of following that? So now the lake's up, as everybody knows, and the sand is ultimately, the only thing that's stopping the sand from being eroded right now is the steel sheet piling wall that's out in front of that old wood timber wall and the steel sheet piling wall. So what the proposal here is to remove the steel sheet piling wall that's there, the one that was done incorrectly, that at one point in time protected their septic system. And I'm going to ask you guys, meaning Daryl and JCI and Tom and whoever else, to correct me if I'm saying something that's not correct. The proposal before us is they would like to put a wall behind that wood wall, where that wood wall is, which is in line with the neighbors' walls in front of their property. Now, I don't know, because I haven't been down there in a while. I don't know what is to the east, or pardon me, to the west of the Vujovich property. So I don't know if that steel sheet piling wall continues to run further west, or if it stops at the end of the Vujovich property. I think that's pretty much the way I understand it now. Daryl had sent some pictures last night, which I sent to you guys, and those are the pictures that I saw. And I said, well, you got a little bit different situation than what you think here. So that's what's before us. Don't everybody speak at once now.
Larry?
Yeah.
This is Joe. I was down there before I came to the meeting. And my understanding was, and the guys on the phone can correct me, but my understanding was where they want to put the new seawall or is on top of where the old seawall is. So it's more of a repair and replace because it's in the same location where the old seawall is, even though the old seawall is a little bit lower, but it is in the location. Is that a correct statement, guys? Can somebody help me?
Yes, Joe. When you say the old wall, there's a steel sheet piling wall, and then on top of that was the wood wall. So what they're doing, replacing the wood as well as the steel that's down below.
Yes, but that's what we're saying. It's a repair and replace of that wall, even though they're modernizing with more sheet than wood.
I know you're shocked here, Joe. You'll be shocked, but yes, I agree with you.
Thanks, Larry. I'll write that in my diary. So just from the conversation, what we're saying, I believe, and like I said, I was down there, and it does look logical what they're talking about doing, because now their wall, the last one, will be in line with all the neighbors, and the other wall that's so far lakeward will be taken out. The east-west wall, the one facing the lake, and the north-south wall, that also wall will be taken out. And yes, the only wall that will be there is the one that we just said that is going to be replacing the sheet piling hood wall. And what they're going to do is on the east side, they're going to connect, because I think it was from my vision, it was very close to the concrete wall of the neighbor. And then on the west side, I believe what I was told, and you guys correct me if I misunderstood something, I believe that they're willing to go with that seawall a foot and a half off of the property line on the west side. And when they put the return in, they'll put the return in a foot and a half off, which would abide by our ordinance. So, am I correct, fellas?
Joe, you're absolutely correct. That's the goal there. JCI is going to have to probably figure some stuff out in the field, especially when they start exposing that wall, especially that wall to the west. They're not sure what we're going to find there. We're assuming that the same wall continues across, and there's just going to need to be some field adjustments to make sure that wall and that property is protected.
Now, the new wall is not going to be any higher than the old wall with the wood on top, right?
It's going to match the elevation of the properties to the east. I think there was 3 or 4, Larry, that go to the east. It's that concrete slope wall. They're going to mimic that same profile.
Oh, Pete, I would say to answer your question, the new wall would be at the height of the old wood wall, which was at the height of the neighbors to the east.
Okay, and the wood wall is the one that's sitting on top of the old sheet pile.
That's correct.
Okay, so if it's no higher than that, and all the rest is, I vote to approve it.
Now, to conform with the coastal protection ordinance, we need before and after pictures, and before probably can't be from 1976. We also need a letter from the coastal engineer, I believe, stating that this is the least detrimental structure to protect the property, least detrimental to the shoreline. And then, is there an existing return wall on the west side of the property?
No.
Well, then that's a new seawall, right?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I strike that.
There's a brick wall on that side, on the west side.
I'm thinking of the one, Bob, that's failed, the one out on the out. I don't know that. I forget my answer. I don't know if back at, and I think that's Daryl, isn't that what you're saying? You guys don't know what is to the west of that right now. Or do you?
And that's going to be part of what we find out in the field. We're assuming good construction practice that they would have installed that wall there, but we can't tell that at this point in time until that excavation started for the wall.
But you guys are planning on a return wall, correct?
There is currently a modular block wall in that same location, in that vicinity of where that return will be, whether it's sitting on timber piles or sitting on grade. There is a wall on that west return that is very close to in line with, when you come 18 inches off that property line, it's very close to in line there. And on previous projects, even being retaining walls, I believe that the commission had determined that that was a sufficient return to be able to replace in kind.
So Larry, I guess I'd ask you, is that the way we interpret that? That a brick wall on the side would classify as a seawall, therefore they're not replacing, or they are replacing the existing seawall?
Well, we did it. The closest thing to this would be the 2234 property, the one right at South 23. And that return wall, the eastern return wall, the sheet piling wall came back to, let's say, the corner of the house. And then long before any of the failure, when there was still 100 feet of beach out in front, the owners, I don't know if you remember or not, they were doing work down there and somebody called. So I went down there and I said, you can't do this. You got to get a permit. And you got to put it back on your property line. So they took, when Oakley built the house, they just pounded plywood down there So what the new owners were doing was replacing that. That was the retaining wall. So what we said at that point in time was, all right, you can go back to where the stone is that was the original retaining wall, kind of to go back to the sign issue. It was originally done very poorly. Then it was done, in a stone retaining wall, which was correct at that point in time, but not sufficient when the water came up. So it's a long way to answer your question, Bob, but yes. So if that wall on the west side is there, then that would be similar to the same situation at 2234, at least in my opinion.
And we made those folks get a retroactive variance, right?
No, that was 2128. That was McGee and up.
Okay, that's where I'm headed is, do they need a variance to put in that return wall?
I think you'd have to, and I'm not trying to be difficult, Bob, but I think you'd have to look at that when they get, I don't know what's there. It wasn't eroded to that point when I was there. It wasn't back to that wood wall yet. And I guess I would ask Tom, if it's Tom, is it eroded back to that point where the old wall is yet?
It's right at the toe of that point. I suppose if the modular block wall is there and it meets that 18-inch ordinance setback and complies with all the ordinances, then I would assume if it's that 18-inch and it's existing, it would meet all your ordinances, therefore not require a variance.
I would say that's a fair statement. If the wall is there, the return wall is there, and it's a stone, and they're replacing it with the return, I would say that was an accurate statement. If there's nothing there, then I think you'd have to reevaluate. But there's a caution because it's not a what do I want to say? It would be something that we would have to do very quickly from the building commission standpoint. I mean, I'll be down there every day, just like I was on all the others, but it would be, if we all of a sudden say, oh, there's no wall here, we're going to have to act pretty quickly on what we want to do, because I wouldn't want to put the property in jeopardy.
Well, I guess, the way we handled that last time is because it was an emergency, because frankly, once you've taken that thing down, you've kind of created an emergency. At that point, maybe they go ahead and do the building and retroactively go to the BZA, just because people are watching this and want to be sure we're following that ordinance.
I agree. I don't want people calling me at midnight yelling at me. I had enough of that over the last 5 years.
I've had plenty of it over the last week, Blair. I know.
You guys just tell me what you want to do. Chris?
And Larry, I think that maybe, and I think that you guys do try to follow that, and at some point, powers bigger than all of us will decide what the DNR and what the Supreme Court meant. Be that as it may, we have our ordinance where it is, and maybe if you're inclined to improve it, and that emergency were to happen, maybe you empower now or grant it that if emergency as based on determined by the building commissioner, for instance, does happen, that they will be granted an emergency permit subject to the same caveats that they go and get the variances that are required, and with the explicit understanding that if they don't get the variance, that is temporary structure in nature, and that they don't get the variance, it's not legally there. I don't know a better way around that if you want to try to address all the contingencies right now that you can without the necessity of another meeting.
Well, and we know we're going to be creating an emergency when that return wall is taken out. At that point, it becomes an emergency. So I think we could make that caveat.
All right. Pete?
I agree. Can we make a motion to approve based on all that?
Okay. All right.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Pete, do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Chris, I may need some help in getting these minutes correct on this one, all right?
No problem.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay. This 2619 Oriole Trail, that came in just this week. I think we need to take a harder look at that.
It was a little bit late, and I think we need more time to review it.
Yeah, I agree, Joe.
Twice today, Larry?
Pardon me?
Can you agree with me twice?
Hey, don't push it, pal.
Uh-huh.
3002 Lakeshore Drive, we've already got that done. And then 1636, we're done there too.
Right.
There's one more that we have here that's not on the list, is 2003 Idlewood, which is Ruby family looking to.
They're before the BZA.
There's two applications though. The volume addition, of course, because of the non-compliant lot. But this one is a remove and replace the garage and put a portico on the front door with no new coverage. So she specifically separated these two applications, knowing that she'd need a variance for the other two projects, but believing that, at my advice, that these two remove and replace the garage and portico on the front would be allowed.
Lou, just for clarity, I see one application that we received through Deanna on July 7th, stamped and paid, but I don't see another application that is stamped and paid through Deanna.
Do you show the one as A, remove and replace existing attached garage? B,
No, the one that's July 7th is the one that says C attached. And I believe that's the one that they're going to the BZA with. Am I correct?
I have both applications in front of me.
And you have them both stamped and paid for?
No, I don't have a stamped edition. She sent these to me. I forwarded them to Deanna and didn't reprint them.
But I never got a copy.
I've got an email trail here from me to the building commission saying she should pay the permit fee for the sewer project and list the contract. That is on the permit application, should not be considered by the building commission.
And I think,
If that permit fee hasn't been paid, we shouldn't be considering.
and I think that's where we're at.
She's paid for one of them, okay?
Yeah, the one that's in front of the BZA.
No, this is my fault then. I told her to she paid for the wrong one.
Well, whatever we have to process.
They both need to be paid for.
Right, okay, so let's just base this on the fact that she will pay for the one that's not paid for. Can we look at the findings here on this project here and determine if it's acceptable or not, pending payment?
Well, I personally disagree with that approach, but you guys decide.
This is my fault. I told her to pay for one because she paid for the wrong one. She has no idea what the cost of the other one is. If you look at the other application, it shows TBD. Okay, she doesn't know what she's going to do. She doesn't know what's going to be approved. She
It
hasn't
shows,
gotten close.
it shows a cost of improvement for 50,000 and she paid $250 for that permit.
So
Well, then she's paid for the correct one.
No, you,
okay, Lou, let me ask you a question here. The remove and replace garage, I thought that's where they want to put the second story, right?
Yeah, they want to put a second story on that, on that existing deck. They want to remove and replace the garage and the deck that's on top of the garage currently.
Okay.
Complete remove and replace.
So they're not going to put a second floor over the garage? I thought that's ultimately what they wanted to do.
Well, they want to put a room over the garage.
Right.
Right now, they just want to replace the deck.
Okay. So here's my concern, and it has nothing to do with it being on the building commission or the building commissioner. It would, and maybe you and I should get together and talk to her. It would be foolish for them to tear the garage down, build a new garage right, in place of the old one, which they're entitled to do. And it's legal, and so is the front entry situation. Yeah. But it would be foolish for them to go and do that and then come back and try to build on top of that. And the reason I say that is there's different construction, there's structural issues with what you're going to do down below when you're going to support up above, and also what you have to do if you have a garage underneath a living space. So I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but they might want to reconsider. I don't think anybody would have, well, we really couldn't have an issue with them replacing their garage because they're doing it with like construction. And they also have a deck on top of their garage right now, which they could replace. And even though it's a non-conforming lot, that work would have to be approved. There would be no reason not to approve it. But if they're trying to get this variance, it's a little bit of the cart before the horse. You want to do something, and then you're going to have to tear part of what you did apart to do what you really want to do. Now, that's kind of how my wife operates, but I try not to operate that way.
Does your wife know you said that?
No, she's at work. Are you kidding me? There'd be an arrow going through my...
I see her on the list here. Okay, I think we need to wait for a complete set of plans of what they want to do, including the variance. Otherwise, we are at risk of getting all tangled up in our shorts here.
Fine.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Pete. I wouldn't want them to come back to us and say, hey, well, you guys let us do this. Now it's going to cost us 50% more because now we're going to do this included. And Lou, I'm happy to meet with them. I met with them years ago, too. So if you want me to meet with you and them, that's fine.
No, that's what we're okay. They're going down the BZA path there, and I'll speak to them as to the construction method and the insulation and the whole idea of what you just laid out here. No worries.
okay. The only thing I would request for that second application, if they get it into Deanna, so she could at least stamp it, know that she has it. Because I don't see that ever getting it.
All right. That's the last of the permits. I have a little bit of a discussion here, or maybe more of a request. When I first started doing this, it was kind of like 10, 12, 14, tops 15 hours a week. And and that was fine. And it's turned into a lot more time because of this lakefront stuff, which I'm fine with. But it's turned into where I'm spending 20, 30 hours a week doing this, which is okay. I'm not complaining again. But the problem for me is it's hard for me to get the clerical stuff done. And Joe's been great. and always doing all the clerical stuff. I think it's good to have separation of church and state and get all these things, done by different people. But I think we either need to compensate Joe or get Joe some clerical help, to get stuff that, like, these things put together, the minutes done, those types of things, so that, I just, I'm doing the minutes, as you guys know, half the time I'm doing on Wednesday and Thursday evenings before the meetings. So I don't know if what you guys think about that. Maybe we can think about it and talk during the month, and maybe try something next next meeting. But I think it's hard to lean on Joe and say, hey, just dump this all on him. And he's been great. Don't get me wrong. He's wrong half the time, but he does a good job.
I completely agree with you on this. This is Lou. Completely agree with you on this, Larry. Here, we need secretarial help here, and I think if you guys have read the minutes from the BZA meetings, if we were to consider anybody, we should consider Meg Collins.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. She does a good job. I'm impressed with her minutes.
We'd have to definitely check on her availability. She's got,
Right.
I think, 4 kids.
She didn't have any children, does she? She's got a lot of spare time.
Yeah, she's got 4 of them. They keep her pretty happy. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. So I guess before we do that, we need to talk to Meg.
And if this lakefront issue dies down, I have more time to do it, but it's just, it's a little tough.
Okay.
So that being said, anything else to discuss?
Yeah, I've got a list, I'm afraid.
How about the right of way?
Yeah, we got that too. I'll get to it.
Okay.
Can I go down my list?
Yeah.
So in the last 3 weeks, discovered like 4 or 5 new stairs going down from people's property onto the beach. None of those were done with permits. I understand people are claiming that they're replacing. We passed an ordinance last winter that said you can't replace them. You certainly can't do it without a permit. So I've been sending text messages to Lou and Larry. I guess I'm wondering, those people need to be fined. They need to be fined daily until their stairs are taken down. We cannot have another spring with all the debris on the beach. Chris, I don't know if you've gotten any tickets on that yet, but if they haven't been generated, I think they need to be.
Yeah, and Lou and I kind of touched base on this already. So he's making his rounds, and he's been keeping me informed. And then on those, we're probably a little prematurely going to send a copy of those and just inform everybody of, hey, this is out there. And then in addition, a reminder, and send them a copy of the ordinance.
Okay. So we're proceeding with that. Lou, you're going to generate violation tickets and get people informed of what they need to do, right?
What do you mean, what they need to do?
They need to remove their stairs that were put in without permits.
I'm now writing on fines repeat daily until stairs are removed.
Okay, and then, okay, so how long do we let that go on before we involve Chris? Because, we've seen how this works, and I don't think we want to see a replay of what's going on with people just letting these fines accumulate. Chris, where are we at with that?
Well, those, I think you just take action to have me, as I said, the intention was to follow up, to be proactive of, here's your violations, and in addition, here's the ordinance. If you want to take action sooner than later, then I think you should, whatever those are. Maybe it's just the stair violations that you have a blanket authorization for me to move forward, and then I will give them a short time to take them down. And if they don't, in addition, the same blanket approval that you gave earlier to collect fines and enforce the ordinances is what you should do.
Well, then I would make a motion that stair violations If they're not taken down within 2 weeks, they automatically get forwarded to Chris for further action.
And the fines need to be stated.
Yep. And daily.
Stair violations not removed. In 2 weeks, what was the, if they're not removed in 2 weeks, what happens, Bob?
They automatically get sent to Chris.
Okay.
With collection and enforcement.
Yep.
Every citation I write, I'm copying Chris on and have from day one.
I'm sure he loves that. Okay, so we have a motion, any stair violations not removed within 14 days are sent to Chris for collection and enforcement. I have a second?
I'll second it, Coker.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And when we do that, we need to define, when we say stair violation, we mean stairs into the public trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our ordinance says that they can build stairs. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I said, or stairs built without a permit. I mean, anything that's outside of that ordinance.
Yeah, because they can build stairs from a dune down onto the public trust. Our ordinance says they can do that, but they need a permit to do that. So if it's built without a permit, it's the same issue. Okay, next on my list was 1702 Lakeshore Drive. Larry, that's where they were down there tearing down a dune yesterday.
Oh, yes. So a little background on this. If you go down to the beach at all and walk, you'll see there was a concrete septic tank down on the concrete block septic tank down on the beach. And they sought a permit to remove that tank, their septic system. They went on a pump and haul, and their drain field was exposed, which are those 12-inch diameter black tubes. And there was also a section of their boardwalk that had fallen down the bluff. So we told them that, yes, you can remove the tank, you can remove the drain field area and, or the exposed drain field and the failed boardwalk. And nothing happened. I mean, that's been 2 or 3 months ago at least, maybe 2 months. So then Bob called me yesterday and said he stopped down there and that there was a Pavey, had some equipment down there and they were destroying the bluff and hauling sand off. So I immediately called Mike Pavey, who is one of the owners. And I said, Mike, what's the deal here? I said, I hear you're hauling sand off and that you're destroying the bluff. He said, no, we're doing what we said. I said, well, you shouldn't be hauling anything off. And he said, well, we're not. He said, we're hauling off the concrete. And he said, there may be some sand in that concrete. And I said, yeah.
That's a damn lie.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I saw the front loader dumping sand into the back of their dump truck. And then I saw the dump truck heading out Chastleton. So
right. So I said,
I'm not buying it.
Well, I didn't mean to get your dander up, Bob.
Sorry, man, but there's nothing worse than they can do but destroying our bluff. That really.
Right. So I said to him, I said, Mike, don't BS me. I said, I'm going to drive down there and see what's going on. I said, if you're doing more than what you said you were doing. And unfortunately, I didn't get out of the office till 6:30 last night, and they were already gone. But you can't. And I actually think, and Chris, you might know this, and you might have to correct me. I think it's against state law to remove any sand from the Lake Michigan basin. I think it's certainly the DNR requires permits to take sand off, but that shouldn't have happened. I agree, Bob, that should be some fines and they should be significant.
And they should be daily, and there needs to be restoration of that dune. And there need to be daily fines until that dune is restored. And this is not the first time that this Pavey company has done this. They're the company that destroyed 4 dunes to the west of there. So I'm not crazy about Pavey being allowed to do excavation in our town. And I realize that may make it difficult for people to find excavators, but there's nothing worse these people can do but destroying the 4 dune. That's just an affront to the community. So I guess I'd like to recommend 2 things. One would be daily fines until that dune is restored, and that restoration includes replanting of any dune grass. They need to make it match what's on either side of that property. And secondly, I'd like to recommend that the building commission rescind the restoration of Pavey's company.
This is Pete. I second that motion.
And before you guys move forward, I do think that in these, I think that your ordinance gives you that authority. We've discussed that. I think it's most thorough in the interests of, legal terms, due process, that the building commission should have, like the town council previously did, is a hearing, and there are legal tenets and legal reasons that, if someone were to challenge, I don't know if they do or don't, and maybe that's not your concern. I'm just helping you make an informed decision. I think it is most thorough to give them notice and have a hearing and do it that way. If you're inclined to do it, or hear them out, whatever the case may be, in the cases of revocation. Okay. And so I know that under your ordinance, I think you have the authority to do it. I think that you should consider whether you want to handle it, not trial style. We don't want to make it litigation, but in the interest, they do have an interest in making a living, for lack of a better description, right? And there are administrative procedures and things that apply. However, not to destroy the town. And what, as you say, Dr. LeMay, it is a travesty in terms of what they did to the dune. If that's indeed, they're not accurate, and you have proof, right? You've seen the truck as well. So I just want to, like I said, put it out there to help you guys make an informed decision. And if and when somebody decides to challenge that may be a vulnerable spot to allow them. Are they going to sue you? Are they going to appeal it within the town? I don't know. And I know you guys aren't shying away from any threats of that. I'm just trying to make sure that you have a good basis upon your decision.
I'm not in favor of unilaterally banning them from town without some sort of due process or a hearing or something, because got to have a reason for doing it other than just what you have an opinion of.
Okay, so Chris and John, you guys are the lawyers. So would it be correct for us to send a notice to them? Obviously, let's say we send it Monday and say a week from today, Monday, Tuesday, whatever, at X o'clock, we're going to have a Zoom meeting discussing the purpose of this Zoom meeting is to discuss your registration. And then, is that suffice, Chris?
Well, I think so. And I think at the same time, you have the parallel move of, as Dr. LeMay suggested, certainly writing them a citation and the fines regardless. And then the bigger picture is because the feeling is, and if it's accurate, that there's been multiple, but I think it's important for you guys to have that decision, like the last one you guys did, they were aware and you guys had previously discussed, but also, having a basis for that demonstrated on the record. So I do, Larry, 10 days is probably a good measure to give them 10 days before the hearing. And, yeah, just sending them, and simply the subject of the meeting will be consideration of, suspension or revocation of their registration.
All right, I'll make a motion then to have Chris send that out to Pavey Excavating.
Okay,
Larry, I'll circle back with you on the date then, maybe after this meeting, you and I'll talk.
That's fine.
I want to make a question about the process here. So we're going to send the notice of the hearing for revocation, number one, and number two, we're going to initiate the violation, the citation. As Bob said, that's the second thing. So both those things have to go on.
Yeah, and you might want to see if the DNR is interested in it as well, right? So,
I'm sorry?
So then you may want to see if the DNR is interested. I don't know if they encroached at all on the public trust, but that's not the first time those things have happened.
Well, if it's the dune, it's our dune. It's not the public trust. Yes?
Yeah.
But we can invite them.
Although, you could see the tracks, and I have pictures of the tracks where their dump truck and payloader went down, and definitely were down well onto the public trust property. They accessed it through the neighbor's property to the west.
Let's go full tilt.
Okay.
So fines are now immediate, and then we'll send them a notification that we're going to have a hearing regarding suspension of their registration.
All right, Lou, you'll have to give them a ticket. I suppose the best way would be just to mail it to them.
If it's written,
Well, that's the only way I'm going to be able to track them down. And if they're done at 7:02, then they're not going to be there. This is a problem I face all the time.
hey Lou, if you want to write it,
Deanna to mail it to their company.
if you want to write it and get it to me, I'll send it as part of my correspondence.
The ticket goes to the homeowner, correct?
Yeah, I think that you can cite, I think that we should cite the contractor here as well. I mean,
Not the homeowner?
I'm not saying that we should, the homeowner's responsible. That's who was doing work there, right? But at the end of the day, Pavey, in terms of the violations, seem pretty egregious here. So.
And included in the letter, we need to, as Bob said, we need to say that fines will be accumulating until the dune is restored.
And this violation is against the coastal protection ordinance, and we also have an ordinance against sand mining, and that was in place.
And land disturbance.
Land disturbance too.
All right, so Lou, if you write the ticket and you get it to Chris, we'll get the ball rolling.
Okay, somebody want to map out for me what they want the ticket to say exactly, please?
$28,000 a day.
I mean, we want to make it right. Chris?
Right, we'll have to read through the shore protection ordinance and make sure that we cite the correct. You know what? I'm going to let Chris speak to that. I'm not.
Well, I was going to say, Lou, maybe between you and Dr. LeMay and I, we'll get it squared away where you have the proper language.
Very good.
Cool. Another thing, I had a email from.
Wait, Bob. Did you make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yep.
I second it.
You're right. Is the motion let Bob, will you amend your motion to say that we're going to issue the ticket or the citation, and we're going to send them a notice that at a minimum of 10 days, we'll pick the date that we're going to have a online or a Zoom meeting for the sole purpose of discussing the registration. Is that okay? All right. And Pete?
That's the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, Bob?
Okay, next thing, this is not quite as urgent or distressing, but I got an email from Patsy Gately. She's concerned about neighbors who are spraying for mosquitoes on her property, and she says it bothers her. But when I checked into this, apparently there is no registration for people who do that in the town of Long Beach. I wanted to just pick you guys' brains to see what you thought. I talked to Deanna, and she says some of the companies that don't have to register in Long Beach include Orkin, Lawn Medic, Franklin Pest Control, septic cleaning companies, chimney sweeps, Bottranger Pools, which apparently does a lot of business in town, Bellini Pool Company, Finishing Touch, Personal Touch, Johnny the Spot Window Cleaning, Mobile Pet Grooming Service, Asplund Tree Service. All the other tree services apparently have to register, but for some reason Asplund doesn't. So I guess I'm just wondering what the town's position ought to be on these various companies that come in here and offer services to our citizens.
Well, excuse me, Bob, but where did this, how was this identified? I mean, where is this passed as a resolution or what?
Oh, you got to get a special hat to get that found out, Pete.
No, I've never heard of it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Pete.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So the list of
I'm hearing you.
The list of contractors that you provided, I don't know where that exists. Did everybody else hear me, or am I going deaf here?
I can hear you.
I hear you, Pete. I don't either, and I don't know that that's. I don't know if that's a list that says these people don't have to register. I think Deanna and Bob, correct me if Bob took off. I think she's saying that these people haven't registered and they do a lot of work here. Bob, that's not a list of people that somebody said, hey, you don't have to register. It's a list of people who haven't registered, right?
It's a list from Deanna where she's aware people are doing services in town and haven't registered, yes.
Okay. So, Pete, I don't think anybody's given them permission to not, you don't have to register. I think what Bob's questioning is, is Orkin and Franklin's Pest Control and No Mess Chimney Sweep and Bontrager Pools, who's a pool cleaning service. SRG, I think, does register. So really, they should register. I know Bontrager Pools was registered last year because they registered to put a pool in on Oriole Trail. And, I will tell you that I had Bontrager do some work for me 2 weeks ago. And I just assumed they were registered because I knew they were registered last year. I didn't check, I didn't go online and check the list. So I don't know. They should register. I think
for the last 8 years that I've been involved with the town, no list like that was ever presented to me. Yeah. And if you're a contractor, and maybe we need to define contractor, a contractor has to register. So if you're doing a spraying thing or a lawn care thing and you have a contract, you register. That's right. At a minimum.
Why don't I have the clerk's office send these people letters letting them know that they need to register, and then if they don't, we can take appropriate action. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And I think we also need to consider what do we think, what is a contractor? I mean, we've got landscape architects who are proposing stuff. Are they registered? I don't know. I mean, we've had constant problems with one that keeps ignoring our ordinances. And following on that, I would say that we need a sign as you come in town, as many municipalities have, that says all contractors must register. This means you, Uncle Sam.
I think it's important that, the definition in the code, the ordinance, in the code overall with regard to registrations, and maybe that needs to be revisited to define it if there's any issue with regard to any of them falling under that.
Chris, is there any kind of state rule about these, sprayers or anything?
There may be something that makes them be certified or have the proper, landscape. Somebody can't just put themselves out or doing certain things, but meaning, how does that apply to the town? If you don't have anything in place, it doesn't. It just gives the ability to see if they've complied with the state, right? But more importantly, I think for your perspective is making sure the pool people or exterminators fall within that definition, and if not, maybe need to suggest to the town council to amend that to expand that definition if it doesn't fit.
Well, I'd like to just take a poll here, but, we got dozens of people driving around town in lawnmowers. Today is, lawnmower day out here. I don't see even any names on trucks. It's just, Joe's leaf blowing service. We're making legitimate contractors register and provide bonds and all that kind of stuff. And then we've got another group, a subculture of people who are just in town. And I don't know what they're doing or what their liability is if something happens in the town.
Well, I'd have to ask Chris as far as the town's liability. I don't know if there is any, but, one of the issues is, and there's a lot of this that goes on, and it's very evident on some of these social media sites, people recommend so-and-so, I recommend this guy, I recommend that guy. And, I see these sometimes, and people will call me and say, hey, do you know anything about this guy? And I said, well, he's not registered. So some of that, because of the social media situation, it fosters it. I think the only way we have an ordinance, part of our ordinance is if you are a contractor, your truck has to be labeled. And I would venture to say that is probably adhered to by 20% of the people that work out here, maybe 25%. So, you can drive down Lakeshore Drive right now, leave your desk and drive down there. And there's probably of the 40 or 30 trucks, let's say, that are working on Lakeshore Drive, I'm going to bet you half those people aren't registered. I'm not picking on Lakeshore Drive. It's just, it's easy drive. That's what happens, Oh, Uncle Jimmy's a great guy. Get him in here. You got a lot of second homeowners who have people that they use from the city. That 1906 Lakeshore Drive, that's happened with the whole job. Lou said every truck that worked there, oh, this is my uncle, this is my cousin, this is so-and-so. No, they were plumbing contractors from the city of Chicago that came in. I mean, a house that I can see right from here up at, what is it, Lou, 2725 Roslyn. I'm going to do all that work myself. You drive by there every day, and there was a contractor's truck from Chicago. So I know that there was a ticket or two issued there. It depends on. Well, here, let me toss this out. When I was talking to Pavey yesterday, Pavey made the mistake of saying, "Well, Larry, there's guys that just don't want to work in Long Beach." I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, Mike, the people that work here understand the rules. And there's people that don't want to work in Michigan City because they don't have workman's compensation insurance. And so that's really, most of the people that don't want to work here don't have the proper credentials to be able to work here. It has nothing to do with the rules. So, I'm not going to put it on Lou nor myself nor any of you guys as individuals. It's, maybe if we could get some help from the cops. It used to be the cops would drive by and, I can tell you from my own experience, if I had a guy in my trucks that was parked in somebody's driveway, I'd get a call from Mike Chastain, and Mike would say, hey, Larry, you don't have a permit posted in the window. I'm not putting it on the cops, but that used to happen. They're out here all the time, every day, all day long. That's probably the easiest way to enforce our registration and permit ordinances is through the police department. I mean, unless you want to, have Lou and I driving around here 18 hours a day, Okay, I'll shut up.
Well, how about if we start with the police, at least asking the police to enforce the signs on the trucks? That might be a good place to start. Then we can start identifying people who are working in town who aren't registered.
Sure. I was just bringing up the things that I know of. It's gonna be hard, but it should be done. There's a lot of people, and the problem is ultimately, and I'm telling you this with my contractor's hat on. Ultimately, it's the failure. Most of the time, poor work comes from somebody who doesn't have the credentials, meaning the proper insurance, can't get a bond, doesn't have workman's comp for their employees. That's the guy whose employee cuts his hand off, and then that guy ends up on the breadline sitting in Chicago because he didn't have workman's comp insurance. Or if that guy's out here doing some work on somebody's house, what people don't seem to understand, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, if I have employees and I don't have, they're not employees and I treat them as subcontractors, which is what a lot of these guys do when they pay them cash and they get caught by one of the state auditors, is they make these guys sign up as subcontractors. So if that guy's out on my job and he burns that house down or he breaks the window or he hurts one of their children, and Chris, I'm going to ask you for some direction, or not direction, I'm not asking for legal advice, but it's pretty hard to come after me. It's easier to go after the homeowner, I think, because my insurance company is going to fight that. They're going to say, hey, this guy was a subcontractor. He's not working for this guy. And that's what these guys do.
Yeah, and circling back to what we were talking about, under the ordinances now, a contractor is not defined as any of the exterminators and those types of things. So you may want to consider, whether you move some things out of the building code section. But at this point, it's somebody who undertakes to construct, alter, repair, move, wreck, or demolish a structure. So, yeah, if indeed you want to start having everybody who does work, and Larry, your points are really right on. It's not to create chaos or not to allow people not to make money. It's really to protect the residents in the town, right? To make sure people who are spraying are properly licensed. People are, if something goes wrong, that the homeowner has, not to bring up a sore subject, but one way that it's potentially working is those who may or may not have damage from the seawalls, right? That there's bonds in place and there's insurance so that there's recourse for somebody if something goes wrong. There's standard.
Just looking at some other municipalities as we're talking here, I noticed that some of them define a contractor as someone who is working on permitted work. So that if you're knocking down a dune, you've got a permit for that homeowner, and that would be a contractor. If you're spraying and it's not a required permit in the town, then that is not technically a contractor. I think we need to first define what a contractor is, and I say that because we have the issue of, and I don't know how it's handled. That is that if somebody's a general contractor and he hires, let's say, Deutscher to do the cement work, and Deutscher's from Illinois, is he a contractor then? Is Deutscher? And that's some of the argument that's been put before us. That when you go to talk to these people, they say, well, I'm working for Joe Blow and he's registered.
No, but I think both. And in fact, under that, the requirements for registration is any person who's acting as a contractor or subcontractor must register. So I think the ordinance as written is clear on that. What isn't clear is who falls under that. So that'd be something you guys maybe want to revisit and then suggest to the town council going forward of how to change that or broaden it.
Okay, that's a good point. Thanks.
Okay, good. Thanks, guys. So what I'll do is try and look into that with the town council. Now, Chris, is there any reason why the police shouldn't be able to enforce the requirement for trucks to have signs on their side? That may be something we can do right away.
Sure. I think only other than in the realm of very similar to, Larry and Lou of being spread thin. But other than that, I think the code already provides that the police are, part of the authorized enforcement mechanism within the town for violations for this. So, Lou is the guy who's pumping out the paper, and it's really just a matter of coverage and ability of being spread thin like everybody else. But there's nothing, they have authority.
Okay. I will talk.
I'm sorry, Bob.
And they have authority to write a citation.
You broke up a little bit. Are we talking about contractor signs?
Yeah, on their trucks.
Oh, on the truck. I thought you were talking about contractor signs in the front yard. Okay, never
No,
mind.
on the trucks. Okay. Finally, right of way. So, Joe, you're still with us?
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, so Joe, I respectfully disagree with you. Let me give you why I disagree. 154.020 says street is defined as the right of way, and the front yard is defined as the space between the foundation and the right of way line. Then under 154.102, that's accessory uses allowed in the right of way. It lists trees, shrubs, flowers, plants are permitted in the front yard and subject to vision. It does not say that those things are not allowed in the right of way. It says these are things that are allowed in the front yard. It doesn't say that you can't put trees in the right of way. It doesn't say it.
I'm not, you're looking at it backwards. So what does it say? It says you can put trees in the yard, but because it doesn't say you can't put trees in the right of way, so what does that mean? You can put trees in the right of way too? So why did they delineate the yard and not the right of way too? I don't see the logic in.
I don't. Then it goes on to specifically say, no retaining walls, plaques, ornament lampposts, bird baths, etc., are allowed in the right of way. Again, it doesn't list plants.
We have trees in the right of way all over town. The town has trees in the right of way.
Okay.
Are we going to make the town?
Joy, unmute yourself, please.
You're muted, apparently. Go ahead and repeat it.
My point was just that there are trees everywhere in the right of way all over town. If we're gonna make people remove trees that are in the right of way, wouldn't we have to make the town remove all the trees in the right of way?
Now, we're talking about, I'm not gonna agree with you, but what I'm talking about right now is I'm not talking about removing anything. I'm saying, don't put it in. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying, don't put it in. Now, we can go over a review of removing stuff, but you shouldn't allow it in the first place. And also what I'm talking about, so we avoid some of these other ambiguities, is all I'm really zeroing in on right now is if you start at bus stop 13, and I'll pick a bus stop, go to 26. I think, and I don't have it in front of me, and let's just do Lakeshore Drive, which is 50 feet. Lakeshore Drive is 50 feet, platted 50 feet. So I believe that's in the first go-around of the town. I can't remember where the town stopped, but when they did the first go-around of the town, that's what was incorporated. I think they went at least to 26. So I'm saying that section that I'm talking about has specific rules there might be other rules when other things are brought in. I'm not arguing about those either. All I want to zero in on 13 to 26, Lakeshore Drive, new stuff. Because yes, there are, talk about dangers, there are plenty of places. Lakeshore Drive is just terrible. And we have to start someplace. And what those people did over there at 22 was just sinful. We allowed the other house next to that to even put in larger trees right on the stop. We're allowing things that shouldn't happen. And that's what I'm trying to get at. And I disagree with Bob's logic of what he's saying is it says what's allowed in the front yard, and it doesn't say that it's allowed. It doesn't say the opposite, that it's allowed in the right of way. You can say it doesn't say that it's not allowed. I can say it doesn't say it is allowed.
Oh,
And also, what you have is you have a diagram on that other page that shows where the right of way is and where the yard is. Chris, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that your points are off base on what you're trying to accomplish. I do think that it's flawed in the working back and forth. If it does, in Mr. Coker's and mine profession, if it doesn't say that you cannot, then the deduction is that you can, if you're not restricted from it. I do think that maybe this starts, in section, what is it, 9422, where you were talking about earlier, there are some materials that are in the street or sidewalk, or, that there's a section there. It talks about street or sideway obstructions in 9421. Maybe the better conversation here is how do we reconcile all of these different code sections? No matter, because there are a few different places that say different things. I don't think that diagram is probably a good diagram because that doesn't indicate to me as I look at it, and I haven't looked in depth. I know it's something that it's difficult. We've had this conversation with various representatives of the town in different forms. Where do you start and where do you stop with what exists, but going forward? But I do think a measure, public safety is always a thing. You can always rely on that, sight lines and those kinds of things that you don't. But I think easier from your perspective, Joe, is, maybe we look to work on improving this language. I don't think it's bad. It's just being more clear if that's the flavor of what you want to accomplish. But right now, the general tenet, and I know this is counterintuitive, the general tenet of right-of-ways is if you're given 50 feet and you don't use those 50 feet, then the property owners in general get to use what's not used for purposes as long as it doesn't interfere. And Lakeshore Drive is probably not a great example because it's packed, right? People are up to the roadway and people are walking that. So, but those things inland a bit, that becomes less clear.
And Chris, that's why I'm avoiding everything. And all I'm talking about is Lakeshore Drive. And all I'm talking about is from 13 to 26, because I'm not getting into other areas that were brought into the town or anything else. And I will review that other stuff, the positive and the negative, but it sure doesn't make sense that they wrote an ordinance that said you can put trees in the yard, the front yard. That's where you can put trees. And they didn't, then why didn't they bother it to say, well, you could also put trees in the right of way? They didn't make that issue. And I can't, anyway, I'm just saying.
You and I can discuss this.
I don't know where, let me ask you this question. Whatever you want to call it, I don't know where we're getting 4 feet from. 4 feet makes it safe? I don't see how 4 feet makes it safe.
Joe, the 4 feet situation comes into play with the street department. And I can't tell you exactly where. I can't plug the ordinance. It may even be in the actually John Coker, I remember, I think it was you, when you were putting your wall up, your old wall was closer to the street, right?
Yeah, but I got it surveyed and I wanted to make sure I was back of the right of way. My argument is this: what if the town decided to make Lakeshore Drive 50 feet wide? Now, whether you got a tree or driveway or whatever in that right of way, I think the town, could they not, Chris, make Lakeshore Drive 50 feet wide from what?
Well, Lakeshore Drive is 50 feet wide.
You can't, go ahead.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't, yeah, I think the town has that platted right. I think some difficulties of what's been allowed over time make it not as easy, because those that aren't, but Dr. LeMay and I have talked about it, because there's an oddity, but there's at least one case out there that says a pool in a right of way hasn't been found to be a permanent structure. Now, not that we want people to start doing that or fences, but going forward, and Mr. Coker, you have always said, Lakeshore Drive is a jewel, right? And if you want to start doing walking paths or bike paths, so certainly one way to stop that is what Joe is suggesting going forward, is how do we start to limit a bit?
But the one thing, Chris, that I'm trying to avoid is just what you said. There are some crazy nuances about other things. I'm just saying I'd like to see what nuances there are on that 50-foot Lakeshore Drive, bus stop 13 to bus stop 26. If we could just zero in on that without looking for, oh, there's an oddball. They put a swimming pool in it back in someplace in some place.
I think the difficulty, though, as we've talked about,
I don't want to get into all of those. There's a lot of crazy things that could have happened. Let's talk about.
It's the picking and choosing, though. That's the difficult that you guys, the decision that faces is where to enforce and where not to.
Well, I'm starting with Lakeshore Drive.
Okay.
It's that simple. Anyway, okay.
Hold on one sec. There is Indiana case law about right of way, and it discriminates between right of way and roadway. And we need to, the one baseline is safety, and we need to define what is safe and what is unsafe. And that encompasses, how do you use, for example, Lakeshore Drive? Is walking on Lakeshore Drive an appropriate use? If that's what we decide, then it becomes a safety issue for walking. Is it unsafe for people to walk on Lakeshore Drive at certain points or drive?
It is now.
So we got a lot of work.
But okay, and I'll stop because it's getting late. But I still believe our ordinances do say a lot of the things I'm saying, and I still don't believe you can put trees in the right of way. And I don't know what ordinance created a 4-foot setback. That was all I was trying to be very specific and to delve right into that issue. Because we're talking about, I could enumerate a lot of other things, but I just wanted to bring up because of what happened.
Okay, I'm not trying to cut you off or cut you short, Joe, but I think the best thing to do, and I think Chris started to suggest it, would be for you to get with Chris, and maybe Chris can give you some of the legal reasons why the ordinance, or what the ordinances say.
I would even hire counsel. I can do that.
Nobody's asking you.
No, I'm just saying, if we're disputing the language,
I think that's really.
Then I'd like to know. I think the language is clear.
Okay.
For that distance from 13 to 26 for the 150 feet of Lakeshore Drive. I think it's clear when it talks about that right of way, which the road is 50 feet wide. I think it's clear what it says. Let me review it. I'll come back to you guys.
Let me, how about this? How about we task you with getting with Chris so you can report at the next meeting what you guys figure out about the right of way. And I will add that this 4-foot situation, and that's why I asked John Coker, because for some reason, I was involved in that because John's on the corner. It was long before I was involved in the town. but they asked me from a fire department standpoint about turning the corner. And if I'm not mistaken, John, they said, listen, no matter where your wall is, because you're taking it down, you got to be 4 feet back because that's what the curb consideration is. And I think that may come from the street department, whether it's part of their street cut permit or whatever. That's where it is.
No, I see, no, Larry, I agree with you that 4 feet for a curb is in the ordinance. I agree with you on that.
Right.
It says the curb has to be 4 feet from the pavement. It
Right.
does say that. I agree with that.
So
But I don't know where a curb all of a sudden grew into a tree.
well, I've been interpreting that as anything that's impeding any movement, be it a plow, a walker, a biker, a woman with a stroller, a man with a stroller, whoever, that 4 feet is necessary because that's the way it was laid out for the other things. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's fine. But I think we kind of, everybody kind of has an understanding.
I think also, Larry, for the curb, also, you know, just to say, for the curb, it's
Joe, we can't understand.
Of grade, feet from the porch is above grade.
Okay. Okay. If we're going
Ready for a motion to adjourn?
No, I'm not. I want to see something in writing that establishes what safety is and how it applies to roadway and the uses of the roadway. I don't want to have another visual discussion here of what we think. Let's get something in writing, and also it needs to include references to Indiana case law.
Yep, and we've talked about those, and Joe, just as by way of example, and then we'll get together, because I feel like we've put these together, but you know, in the definitions, there's buffer landscaping that's permitted, and there's reference to maintaining it on private property and privately maintained or in a public right of way. So there are some nuances here that, as you say, it's not allowed, and then there's buffering landscaping that's permitted. So those are all things that, you know, we probably just need to make sure they reconcile, and then I think that addresses. But Pete, I think we have most of what you want already put together.
Because I know you've had conversations with Doug Wickstrom and other people, and I've had conversations with a lot of people myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob?
I'm done.
Pete?
I can handle my stuff offline.
Okay. Joy?
I move to adjourn.
I think that's why John Coker had his hand up. All those in favor?
I'll second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, guys.